Health flashback. There you go.
Perfect. Yep. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Learning to Write a QSM Grant webinar. My name is Dr. Shannon LaFont, and I am currently the QSM chairman and have been writing and scoring grants for the last 16 years. Today, I also have on 3 panelists, one that hasn't joined in yet, but we have Jean May Brett. Jean.
Good afternoon.
And Nathan Cotton.
Hello.
Both will chime in when needed and answer questions provided in the question board. Everyone should have a question box where they can click and write any of the questions. And so as we are going through the webinar, you're able to post questions. Both of them, as we're going through, will be able to answer the questions, so you do not have to wait to the end. Just to let you know, this is the first time that I have conducted a webinar and first time using the GoToWebinar software. So we are going to, may have some glitches, but we're hoping that this is going to run very smoothly. Our objectives today are we going to learn some of the parts or all of the parts of the QSM grant, obtain some strategies to successfully write a QSM grant and actually get it funded, and be able to evaluate some grant components. In order to have access to the QSM grant, there is a link at the bottom of this page. Using the link, it will bring you to this QSM homepage. As you can see, there is an overview of the QSM funding. Each year, legislation appropriates $162,000 in grants for math and science teachers. In the bottom left-hand corner is bolded in red the deadline for the grant. September 11, 2017, due at on or before 11:59 p.m. In the upper right-hand corner of the page is a login. To start your application, you need to press login on the top of the page. When you press login, it sends you to a welcome page. If you have not submitted a proposal this year, you would need to create a new account. If you can see all the way at the bottom of the page, create new account form. If you submitted a grant last year, you will need to create a new account this year. All accounts were wiped out. If you have already created an account, you can use your email and password on the upper left-hand corner of the page to log in and start your application. In order to create your account, you will need to put your organization name, first, last name, login ID, and password. Notice your login ID is your email. Remember that your district may reject emails from Community Force, so you may want to use an outside email address. Once you click Submit, you will receive an email from admin@communityforce.com indicating that you have created an account. In the event that you do not receive an email, you need to contact your ID department to let them know that you did not receive an email from admin@communityforce.com. Let them know that in the future you will be receiving more information from this email address. I also suggest that you write down your login ID, whatever email address that you use, and password in a safe place so you can go back and retrieve it when needed. Once you created your account, the following web page will appear. Notice the View More that provides you with the application directions and requirements. If you click View More, the following will appear. Before applying for any grant, please review all application requirements and guidelines to ensure that you are eligible to apply and that you are going to go ahead and comply with all the requirements needed of the grant. The guidelines on here is that you must be a K through 12 regular education classroom teacher teaching math or science in a public school. So this is not for pre-K and for special ed teachers. A teacher can only submit one grant application, and the total amount for an award is $750. Items budgeted must be non-consumable, and technology items budgeted must be fully justified and link to grant objectives and student performance. You need to ensure that when you're writing your narrative that you do not mention your name, your school, your district, or a town. Anything that will allow readers to know who you are or where you're from. All applications that show plagiarism will be disqualified. Please ensure that if you're using or helping or having someone help you with this, that they are not copying any portions of your grant proposal. All grants must be approved by the principal of your school, so before submitting, ensure that they know and they're okay with you submitting a grant proposal.
Shannon,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to stress that point about plagiarism to those people who are participating in this webinar. It's been very unfortunate in the last few years that some people thought that if they took and changed one or two words in a statement, that it would not be identified as plagiarism. And we've had, in fact, people from the same school with wonderful ideas and certainly very worthy of a QSM, but thought that they could basically work together, write the same proposal when they looked at certain parts in giving information about themselves and what they would be doing and their focus. And unfortunately, it has meant that people did not receive the awards. So if there are any questions about plagiarism, we do need people to be very, very careful and to seek some additional. Thank you.
Thank you. All grants come with reporting requirements, and at the bottom, if you scroll down of that web page, you will see that there are requirements in applying for this grant. If your grant is funded, Jean and Nathan, do y'all have a secondary computer on that y'all can use?
I don't hear any problems.
If funded, you'll have to submit an end of the year report. You must also notify the QSM chairperson, actually Dr. Brenda Nixon, that you have received your grant check, and you must notify you as well as the principal, notify saying that you actually accept the grant.
I believe Brenda is on, but she's on as a participant, not as a panelist.
Okay. If you are okay with the requirements of the grant and you are eligible to apply, then you can go ahead and apply at the upper right-hand corner of the page. Let me go back. In the upper right-hand corner of that page where we had to view more. Once you click apply, the will come up. This is called your dashboard. Notice the icons at the bottom of the page, and each of those icons have a percentage. In order to fully submit your grant, all those icons must have or read 100%. It is recommended that you write your grant information in Word and copy and paste into the text boxes provided. Be sure to click and save your information often on the system, even though it saves automatically every 40 seconds. If your page remains idle for 20 minutes, then you'll have to log in again. If you notice on the upper portion of this board, the orange board going across the top, you will see links to change your password, edit your profile, and a log out. Underneath the orange board, you are given the option to preview your application, where you can actually print it if need be, add a collaborator, and review and submit your grant. I'll talk more at the end about add collaborator button, but right now to get started, you would click the contact information icon on the lower left-hand side of the page. When you are clicking on each of these icons, you can always go back to this dashboard anytime that you need to. This page will appear once you click the contact information icon. Notice that there are red star items. These are items that are required, and if these are not filled in, the grant application cannot be submitted. If you scroll to the bottom of the contact information page, you will notice a Bessie district map where you can download. It's highlighted in blue, and you can see it on the screen. You will have a drop-down option where you can click the district that you are from. Notice that some of the districts are cut through, and if you're still unsure of your Bessie district after reviewing the map above, you can always contact your Bessie representative or one that you feel is yours to verify that region. Notice that the Bessie representatives are also named on the map.
And can I just cut in here? This is Brenda.
Yay, so you're in as a panelist.
Yes. What I have found is that sometimes I think people are putting their address as their Bessie district, but it is your school. Your school address is the one that you need to use. And do make sure that you get in the right Bessie district. Verify that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Further down the contact information, there's radio buttons for math and science. The first time I actually completed this contact section, I missed the math, like clicking math or science, but I did everything else. So when I went back to the dashboard where it says return to the dashboard or save and return to the dashboard, my icon did not read 100%. I went back and realized I missed the radio button. So once you have completed this section, you return and save to your dashboard. You will notice that your contact information now reads 100%. If it doesn't read 100%, I would ask you to go back and relook at all the red star items to make sure they are completed. Let me go back, excuse me. The next section is the proposal information section. You would click on the proposal information section and this page will come up. It is the first part of your application. and you are to describe your students to the reviewers. If you notice, there's a total number of students and some demographic information that you need to complete. On the right-hand side of the screen, I have placed the definitions for urban, suburban, and rural. Do note that you may have all your students in one of those sections, so 2 of them may be 0. Notice that they're stored. So if you are a city, you live in a city, you would have, and you're teaching 35 students, then the total number at the top would be 30, and you would only have 30 in urban, you would put 0 in suburban and rural. You may not have some in the city and some maybe on the outer skirts. You may have all that fall, and it is okay, you put 0s in the rest. This section is only worth 5 points, but it provides a great detail of information for the review. What I did is I provided 2 samples. The first sample I have gives you the total number of students, 30. And you can notice that the rural, urban, and suburban, notice there's on 30. So we would not take any points off because they would have 0 in urban and suburban. And it also provides you a description of the student population at the bottom. What reviewers are looking for is that the information that's provided at the top is not repeated in the section at the bottom. What I ask people to do when writing a grant is to have the rubric for that section next to it and to score your own proposal. So what I'm going to have you do is to carefully read through the sample 1 and look at the rubric on the left. And if you were to score A and B section of number 1, total number of students and categories directly impacted is provided, I want you to think in your mind, what would you have scored as proposal? So what I'm going to have Nathan do is launch a poll, and I want everyone to look at A and B, and I would like you to score A and B for this proposal section. Nathan? Nathan, are you there? Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to have Nathan give you 30 seconds. Nathan, if you store 30 seconds to close the poll, the quick poll. Someone is typing in the background. Nathan, did you close it and show us the poll? Perfect. If I was scoring this proposal, I would have given a 2. So 60%, great job. If I was scoring, that's what I would place. Excellent. Go ahead and close. Yes, total number. If you notice, there's a total number of students, and all of the sections have been filled in. What they're telling us is they have 24 of the 30 students that were on free and reduced lunch. There are 15 of those that are African American, 4 mainstream, and obviously they have no gifted and talented mainstream students, and they have no ESL students. So they have placed either a 0 or a number in there. So as long as all of these are filled in, you will receive all your total points. At the bottom, you'll notice to describe your student population. Remember, when writing this, that you want to make sure that you give extra information. You do not want to provide what's already been given. We need to know that you know about your students and how they learn best, and the challenges that they face every day. So I would like you to read that sentence, or those couple of sentences, and I would like you to score on the scale of 0, 1, 2, and 3. Do notice that when you're writing this section, you're limited to a 100-word count. So they do want it to be very succinct and simple and be specific to your students. Nathan, would you launch the poll? Would you give them 30 seconds and close it? I see there's lots of variations going there. If I was actually scoring this, I would probably score it around a 1. Now, mind you, everything is subjective. I would give them a 1 only for the mere fact that they put something down. But this information does not tell us much. Look at the rubric when it says, what are the challenges? What are the challenges faced as a result of the demographics? Didn't answer grandparents as caregivers, the graduation rate, single parent, didn't give anything extra, gave actually very little. So I would have given this a 1. So what does a better proposal look like? So sample 2, I'll let you look at it, has 114 students. They filled in all the numbers in the section B. So I would have given that one a score of a 2. If you look at C, describe the student population, does that section give more than what was provided in the section above? My students have a 25.7% poverty rate, with 40% living in single-parent homes. 1/3 of the community population that is 25 years or older never graduated from high school. Therefore, many of my students don't have help with homework at home. Because many are in poverty, about 30% of my students work after school in lieu of extracurricular activities. This one provides a lot more information and background to know the challenges that you face in teaching the student population. And on the right-hand side, I would give this one a score of a 3. Gina, Nathan, and Brenda, before I move on, do y'all want to add anything to this section?
Well, I would like to chime in just for a moment. Make sure you answer the question as thoroughly as you can. We find that oftentimes it's not answered, and just go back over it, look at it, get someone else that is not going to write a proposal or a friend outside of education to take a look at your proposal and see what their ideas will be for you to edit or make any changes that will make it better.
Okay, so where do we get some of this information about caregivers and poverty and high school graduation rates? You can go to Fact Finder at census.gov. I'm going to lower this because this software does not like Mac computers, and I am going to throw up my screen, and I'm not sure if can everyone see the Fact Finder webpage?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, this is a great tool, and when I was grant writing, I've used this tremendously. It helps out a lot. You may have to spend a little bit of legwork in looking through some of these files and finding what's best for you and your community. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where you go to find education attainment first. Say I teach at Raceland Lower, Raceland Middle, Raceland Upper, and Lafourche Parish. You would type in your city and press go. And it's going to give you this page. Notice all the little tabs on the left-hand side. To go to educational attainment, I would click on education and click on educational attainment. If you scroll, what was provided in that previous slide, if you see here, population 25 years and over in Raceland, those with less than a 9th grade education is 10.4%, and those with 9th to 12th grade and no diploma, 15.4. So you can say that 25.8% of the population that's 25 years or older has not graduated from high school. That's something that's very important as a teacher, because you know that there is no help at home, very little help, should I put, at home. You are their person, especially when it comes maybe to higher level math, science. You're their main person in teaching them that content. So if they leave and they do not understand the concept, then if you give them homework, it's going to be hard for them to complete it at home. Well, complete it correctly. So this actually provides your reviewers a lot of information. So if I go back, say poverty, I wanted the poverty, I can go to poverty. Make sure I have. Click the wrong one. I didn't want that one. I scroll to the bottom, and you notice that poverty, right here, families, let's see, with children under 18, below poverty is 23%. So I can put that also in my description. You will also notice that several of these also provide you with the same information if you read through it, as well as other information that possibly can be included. If you don't have time to look through all of these to see the types of information that it can provide for your community in which your students are enrolled in that school, you can actually go to this guided search at the top. I'm sorry, advanced search at the top. And you're going to click, I would put, say you wanted grandparents as caregivers. You would type in what you're looking for. You can even type in single family homes or single parent homes. You would click in your city and press go. Right here it's telling me which Raceland, because obviously there's more than one city named Raceland. So I'll click the one in Louisiana. And the most up-to-date census for grandparents as caregivers was 2000. Even though that's older information, it is the most recent, and it still could be used. If you scroll down, grandparents living in households with one or more grandchildren under 18, right here, responsible grandchildren, is 44.5%. So you can imagine at that school in Raceland that 44% of your kids about in your classroom have grandparents as caregivers. So if you can imagine that those that are 25 years or above, some of these are in those homes where they have not graduated from high school. The next slide that the next website that was underneath the fact finder was the National Center for Educational Statistics. If you do not have time to go talk to your cafeteria manager, find who that is, that you can get your free and reduced lunch here. It's it's a year or two behind. It takes them a while to catch up, but you could still use it. It's still very close from year to year. Your free and reduced lunch rate might vary a few percentage points, but it's very close. So if I teach at Thibodeau Elementary School, I would type in the school name, try to provide as much information. I would type in Louisiana, and I would type in Lafourche, and then I would press search. Okay, if I actually spelled Lafourche right, it actually might work. So if you see, it would list all the schools that had Thibodeau in it that was in Lafourche Parish. I would click on Thibodeau Elementary, and you notice it provides you with lots of information. There's actually some grants that you would write that actually ask for an NCES number. And these are some of the, if you're not aware, these are your NCS numbers. Each school has an NCS number. And if you notice at the bottom, there's a free and reduced lunch number, 411, and a reduced price number, student number, 41. I would add those two together and divide it by the total number of students at the top to give me my free and reduced lunch rate. Do notice this is 2014-15, so it is a little behind, but as again, you know, each year it varies only a few percentage points. So if you are don't have a whole lot of time, I know the grant is going to be due in just less than a month, you actually can go here and use that as your free and reduced lunch. Jean and Brenda, y'all okay with that, correct?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
I would think. Again, it does vary a few percentage points, but I don't think it's enough that it still shows the population of that area.
Correct.
So going back to the web page, let's see. Graduation data, as well as other data, can also be found on Louisiana State Department website, and I'm sure many of you have visited that many times before. In the library section, you can click on the library tab, and it provides you all sorts of information, ACT scores, LEAP scores, PARCC scores, whatever, and as well as cohort graduation rate, attendance rates. You can really fill that section up and actually go over your 100-word count if you really looked into it. Let's see. The next section is goals and objectives. Goals and objectives are to focus on the learning and not the acquisition of materials. Many times when reading and scoring QSM grants, lots of the objectives of finding goals was to get materials and not for student learning. So make sure that your goals and objectives focus on increasing student learning and skills. Also include accompanying standards, if you notice at the top, and the Louisiana student standards to be addressed. Ensure that you make sure that you insert the Louisiana standard, and I shouldn't have GLE on there. Obviously, I didn't update every single slide. Sorry about that. Make sure that you put the right Louisiana State Science Standard as well as the right CCSSM. Also, keep in mind that the end of the year is usually when you get your LEAP and test scores. And the way that it's been going lately, you don't get it at the end of the year. You get it at the beginning of the next year, at the end of the summer. So when you're doing trying to figure out what you want to do as your objective, I wouldn't use any of the state standardized test scores as part of your objectives. All right, sample 1 for goals and objectives. I put a sample goal, an objective, and I actually put the rubric for that section underneath it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have you to read it on your own, and I'm going to have Nathan launch in a few minutes a poll for you to score A, B, and C. A says instructional goals are appropriate, clearly stated, and educationally significant. So I am in a middle school teacher, and I put this as my goal and my objective for my proposal. How would you score A out of a scale of 0 to 2? Nathan, would you launch the poll? Would you give them 30 seconds and close? Is there any way you can bring that one back up? I'm sorry. Nathan?
No, the poll was closed, and it was 77% scored at a 1 and 14% scored at a 2.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. I would actually have scored it also scored it a 1. Mere fact that they actually attempted to put something on there, but it is definitely not clearly stated. It said the project goal is to purchase microscopes so students can be exposed to hands-on learning. Students will be able to identify parts of a cell with a microscope by the end of the first semester. What's the objective? Measurable? So what I'd like you to do is to score B. Nathan, would you launch the poll? Thanks. Notice this time the scale is 0 through 4. Will you give them 30 seconds and close? Good. Good. I definitely would have scored on the lower end of the 0, 1, 2 range because it was definitely not, and I'm going to go ahead and get you to hide it. It was definitely not measurable, and we will see another sample in a minute that is much better than the sample here for in scoring B. C is Louisiana standards are grade and course specific and aligned to the project. So Nathan, would you launch C? And I will have everyone score C. Notice the scale is 0 to 4. Nathan, when 30 seconds are up, would you close the poll? Excellent. It's actually a 0. I would put, there was no mention of a standard at all. No Louisiana standard was mentioned. And me, I would have put as a scorer or a reviewer, I'd have put a 0. Great job. We have 50%, 52%, 0. Nathan, would you close? In looking at this, notice that the goal was to purchase microscopes. If I was scoring and reviewing this, I would definitely, under A, instructional goals being appropriate and clear, I definitely would have given this one lower score because it was focusing on the purchase of microscopes instead of focusing on student learning. Jean, Nathan, Brenda, do y'all have anything to add to this before I move on? Okay, we're going to move on. Sample 2. Sample 2, I'm not going to launch a poll because we're limited with the number of polls. It says the project goal is to improve my students' algebraic concepts at a deep conceptual level by engaging them in multi-sensory manipulative-based activities aligned to CCSSM. By May 2017, Algebra 2 students will increase their proficiency in solving systems of linear equations and inequalities by 10% based on pre- and post-test district assessments. As you can tell, between sample 1 and sample 2, this one has more thought into it and are more aligned to what we're asking for from our people submitting grants. So when you look at A, instructional goals are appropriate, clearly stated, and educationally significant, you'll be more tending to score 2 than opposed to the 0 as in the last proposal. The objective is actually measurable and it's clear. It actually provides the assessment you will be using, the growth that you're looking for, and by when, and actually what students will be taking it. Then you have the Louisiana standard is specific and aligned to the project. And at this time, it says based and aligned to CCSM. I may not give it a 4. I may be more towards the middle because they didn't actually tell me which one of the standards it was hitting. I would think it'd be clearer if it actually provided that information. But actually, this is a very good sample of a goal to me and objective. The next section is an abstract section. And look, this is the first thing that the reviewers are going to read most of the time that provides them with what you're going to do in the classroom. You want to make sure that this is exciting, that they would want their student or their child to be in your classroom. What you're going to do is provide an overview of the project goals, objectives, a synopsis of your implementation plan, and your expected student outcomes. Notice there's only a 300-word max. So they don't want you to be very elaborate. They want you to be very concise. So sample 1. The abstract, and believe it or not, we get this in our grants, and I know they have 3 people on that score, and they see that. I plan to mix different substances to see how they will react to each other. I plan on comparing different types of cells and cell ports with a microscope. I have the rubric underneath, and it actually provides some information that they expect in this section. It says goals and objectives. Synopsis of an implementation plan, and expected student learning outcomes. Well, first of all, I don't see much of goals and objectives, a summary of that. This may be a little bit of a synopsis of an implementation plan, but I don't like the idea of saying I. I like to see what students are going to be doing, the activities that students will be doing in your classroom. I have, and it says expected student learning outcomes. I'm not quite sure what the students will be doing. It looks like the teacher will be doing everything. So as you can tell, this is not one that I would score a 10 if you notice at the bottom. It's 0 all the way to 10. Mine would more be towards the lower end of the scale of the Poly 1 because they miss some of the information that we really wanted to see in the grant. I'm really not quite sure the teacher even knows what she's going to be doing.
Shannon, if I might,
Yes.
I think one of the things to point out is this teacher had the opportunity to be much clearer. There was an opportunity to use many more words and to succinctly tell us what the students would be doing and how it tied to student learning and student achievement.
Agreed. Sample 2. I'm going to give you a few, like a minute to read the sample to yourself. And then what I want you to do is I'm going to get Nathan to launch a poll in a minute. Unfortunately, the software, the webinar software we have, I don't have 10 options for you to choose from. So I kind of just randomly chose a 0, a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 10. So about where you think around you would score this abstract. So I'm going to go ahead and let you read. Nathan, would you launch the poll? Would you give them 30 seconds to Good. I like to see the 5, the 7, the 5 through, I would say the 5, around the 5-ish, and 7 is about kind of where I think we need to be. They did a, you want to close it? Let me go back and find it. We could kind of get the goal and the goal of it kind of. They're not very clear on it, but we could get about that. So I wouldn't take all the points off for that. You do know what's going to be implemented for sure, and you kind of know a little bit of what is expected from the students. It might not be as clearly written, but it's better than the first sample that we had. Could it be better? Yes. I would probably do around the 5, the 6, or 7, and give see the comments on the bottom and put some further comments on how they can actually make it better and what was missing for next time that they can do better. The next section is your rationale. This is the kind of the need, the weakness. What are you focusing on? Why do you want to focus on those goals and objectives? You need to build up why you want to do that. It requires time and something that you can do ahead of time because you need to look at data. I would use the most recent data you have. If you don't have pre-assessment for the kids that's here, but you know each year the kids continuously are weak in measurement, you may want to say last year's measurement scores. Do not use confidential student data. And a lot of mistakes people make is that they don't mention any assessments or pre-assessments that prove that was their student's weakness. I put on here only state data because state data gives everyone's weakness. And just because the state is weak doesn't mean that your students are weak in it. We want to make sure that the data that's given is actually based on your students. So I have a sample 1. It says, science manipulatives will address my kinesthetic learners and provide hands-on experiences for all my students in science. And believe it or not, we get some of that and we get this in our proposals. What I want you to do is for the rationale A. Nathan, would you launch the poll for A? It says the student needs and our areas of weakness are described. And it gives you a 0 to 5. But I don't have the option of having 6 options for you to choose from, so I have 0 through 4. Would you leave it up for 30 seconds and then close? Great job. I like seeing that the lower end of the scale that y'all chose. It shows me that y'all on the right track. Would you close it? It says student needs of area and weaknesses are described. They talk a little bit about kinesthetic learners and hands-on experience for students. To me, that seems like a very blanket sentence that actually can be addressed to any student, not particularly a particular classroom. So I really don't feel like this provides a great need, and I would score toward the lower end of the scale. And I would probably give it a 1. And I would tell them in the comments at the bottom why. B, we cannot launch. I'm not going to launch that because I don't have the goals and objectives for this particular one, so we really wouldn't be able to see if it actually correlated to the goals and objectives. So we're going to skip that one. But if you notice that it says my science manipulatives will address my kinesthetic learners, we have no content listed in here. So this is again very generic and not even enough to know if it even correlated to the goals and objectives. So even looking at this and not knowing my goals and objectives, I probably would have went closer to this only for the mere fact that they didn't even tell me the needs and weaknesses based on content. C, student data are included that illustrate content or skill deficits. Sources may include data collected by the teacher, district, Eagle, or benchmark assessments. Nathan, would you launch the C for this section? I'm going to give them 30 seconds to go ahead and score C. Good job. I like seeing y'all scoring toward the lower end of the scale. Nathan, would you close? It says student data are included that illustrate content or skill deficits. Sources may include data collected by teacher, district, Eagle, or benchmark. On here, I would have scored a 0. And the reason why is because there's no mention of any type of assessment, district, Eagle, teacher, or benchmark assessment. Nor do they mention any weakness for any type of content or skill. So I would have given this a 0. Sample 2. I'll go ahead and let y'all read sample 2. I will not launch a poll. Notice that A, it said the student needs and areas of weakness are described. The teacher did talk about a skill deficit in measurement. She described a little bit, probably could have described maybe a little bit more about the exact measurements, maybe skills that they were low in. There's also B, we cannot score because it's not there. So I've probably given this one a 4 on A. B, if it was about measurement, objectives was increased measurement, the skill in measuring, then I probably would have get scoring that one as well as a higher number on the scale. And C, did it have teacher, it says district pretest data. It did tell us the data, and it did tell us when it was given, actually. And it also told us the amount of students that did not meet that. So that one as well would have been a higher score on this proposal. The next section is a description. You are to explain your project by providing a clear description of how you will address your student learning needs and meet the identified standards that you've chosen. In this section, I would expect to see you describing your learning strategies, the instructional materials that you're going to use, which should match what you put in your budget, and specific activities that you will implement to improve either the content knowledge and or skills that you're looking to increase. Make sure that you are very concise. Do not use acronyms, jargons, or programs. There's lots of teachers here, retired teachers, and there's new programs. And so if you just say Smarty Ants or whatever, they have no clue what you're talking about. You might because you've been using it for a couple of years, but I would explain exactly what it is and wouldn't just use that particular program. I'll have a description, a sample description. That I'm going to give you a few minutes to read. Now, when I am writing my proposal sections, again, I would have my rubric next to me, making sure that I have met and clearly wrote actually everything that they asked from us. So I'm going to go to the next section, and this was so big that I couldn't put the rubric with it. So I'm going to have Nathan launch the poll for A in a minute. It says the applicant conveys a clear vision of a well-planned project. So I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to have Nathan launch A for a description. Notice it's a scale of 0 to 5. We only have 5 options, so I took 0 off. Would you give them 30 seconds and close? Great job. Yes, this proposal, that section was well written, and it would have scored toward the upper end of the scale. Go ahead and hide. The next one, B, the plan includes appropriate use of materials, equipment, educational technologies requested for the project. I'm going to let you score that section. I'm going to go back. Nathan, will you launch B? And give everyone 30 seconds to place a score for that section. Good job. I definitely would have scored. Y'all look like y'all very close to scoring some where where it should be, or what I would. And then the next one is specific learning strategies. Skills and activities are described and are appropriate for the grade levels and targeted students. This will be the last one. I'm going to have you poll on this one. Nathan, would you set the poll for C? Give them 30 seconds to commit. Good job. I probably would have scored that one around 4 as well. They are lacking some strategies, but they do a good job of listing some of the activities that the students will be doing in the classroom. Nathan, would you close the poll? I know this is very fast. It doesn't give you time to truly analyze each one. And we are given, when you're actually reviewing, you have plenty of time to sit and score and look and think. And so I appreciate y'all doing this so quickly and just committing to something. D right here, it says the plan includes evidence that the project as presented will adequately address the stated learning needs and standards. And since I'm not going to do the poll on this one because we don't have the standards and the objectives, whatever, and the need of the project, the weaknesses, to see if it actually is aligned or correlated to the plan. So we're going to go ahead and skip that one. The next section is the evaluation. How will you know if your grant or goals and objectives have been met? Well, this is the section that you're going to develop to help us to know. Let's see. So again, on the left-hand side is the assessment. The right-hand side is the rubric. I'm going to give you a few minutes to read through the evaluation that is written for that sample. And if you look at the rubric, we have A, B, C, and D. A says the evaluation plan includes a description of the assessment tools that will be used to determine student growth. So after reading that, I'm going to get you to score. So I'm going to get Nathan to launch evaluation A. And I know it is from 0 to 5. I took off 0. And I want you to either score 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Nathan, give them 30 seconds to commit and show us the results. I find it very interesting. And I think I probably would have done that when I first looked at it too, because it seems like it's very well written. But it didn't answer, I think, the question, the true question that it was asking. So most of the people kind of tended to go toward the higher end of the scale. And would you hide it? Thanks. Let me go back to evaluation. It says to describe the assessment tool. So in here it tells us the assessment, how often they're going to do it. They're going to pre-test, post-test, retest. But they don't describe the test. Will the test be multiple choice? Will it be a hands-on, say it's measuring, will it be a hands-on measuring? Will they actually take the tape measure and fill in A, B, and C on a multiple choice? Is it fill in a blank? Is it open response? How is it being administered? I mean, it really doesn't tell us a whole lot about some of the stuff. A rubric will be used to evaluate. What are the students going to be doing for that rubric, and how's that rubric set up? Are they going to be able to do it in groups, or is it single? So it sounds good, but to me, if I was scoring this, they really didn't provide me what the tests and the rubric, what it looked like. So I would have tended to put that on the lower part of the scale. They definitely wouldn't, I mean, it's very subjective on what you do, but mine would have been toward the lower end. And I don't know if anybody else is on there. They're definitely able to chime in if they disagree or on that section. B, specific methods in which pre-post project comparisons of knowledge, understanding, and skills that measure student growth. Is that on there? If it is, we'll score toward the higher end of the scale. Nathan, will you launch B, evaluation B? And we'll give the attendees about 30 seconds to score, commit, and respond. Okay, looks like majority of people picked 3. Would you close the poll? On this one, it says, do they have pre and post-test comparisons? And as you can see, they do have a pre and a post-test. They even somehow got a retest somewhere in there to check the guest to see if it's in there. They do mention that they have it, and I would definitely give them the end. I would score them higher than a 3 on this side of the scale. It probably would have been best if they would have said they were going to do a pre and a post test to ensure or to look for student growth. Maybe they would retest on the weak areas in it. That maybe if they was a little bit clearer, if you wanted to truly look at it and analyze it, maybe to get a 5, they could have maybe described it a little more. I probably would have scored them a 4. C, the evaluation procedures include objective data. Does this sample give that? Nathan, will you launch evaluation C? We'll have the attendees respond to their score. Give them 30 seconds to commit, and then you can go ahead and show us the results. Looks like majority of the people provided a 3. I wish we would be in a classroom where I can hear the reasonings for them. For that, we'll go ahead and hide. Includes objective data. We do know that there is a test. It's going to be hard to give them a 5 because we do not know if how's that test composed. Is it multiple choice? If it is, then it is objective. Is it all open? Is it all open response? If not, then it's more subjective. So it's kind of hard to tell if this is all totally objective or not, but I would have given them the benefit of the doubt, and as well with the I probably would have given them around a 3. D, it says both formative and summative assessments are included. And so what I'll do is I will give Nathan the chance to launch the poll for you to score D on a scale from 1 to 5, left 0 off. Give them 30 seconds to commit. Good job. Looks like most people are around a 3. Nathan, would you close? So on this one, provides both formative and summative assessments. Since they are doing a pre, a post-test, a retest, they're doing a rubric. They really don't say how they formatively going to go through that, but I'm assuming that some of these are form, a pretest is kind of a form, it's form. I would actually give them probably around the 4. They probably could have done a better job of explaining formative and summative in the evaluation to definitely ensure that whoever's reading, that they would give them the higher scores. So let's see and go on to the next one. Qualifications. Qualification section, it says that we need to know that you are qualified to actually implement the materials that you're asking for, that you have enough content to be able to appropriately implement the materials in the classroom. So in this section, you're going to have to provide us enough information to prove that. It says in here, make sure you include the topic of whatever PD that you had attended, the contact hours, and the year of the training. You can use formal or informal education opportunities, any type of professional development throughout the year that you have attended, or college or continuing education courses that you have taken. Remember, these must be directly related to what you're writing for and the materials that you're going to be using. I do have a sample. And Nathan, can you see if I have a poll for qualifications?
You don't. We did 15 out of 15 polls.
Perfect. Okay. So we're limited with the polls. I didn't remember which one I stopped on. I only provided, it says here, 2 professional development experiences. Here I only provided a sample of 1 for you to use as a model for your own. And it says that these experiences are congruent with the content and pedagogical knowledge needed for the project. When you look through here, look, it provides the date, how many hours you participated in, and it tells you a little bit about the workshop. Some of the workshops, you may not want to put the name of the workshop because it might make people know exactly what area you're from. And if so, that might be a part to disqualify your proposal. So to ensure that you do not get disqualified, best thing to do is probably just give them a summary, a description of what it was, and maybe not always give the specific title. So in this section, they provided a little bit of description of what they did in there, maybe the things that they worked on, the content they worked on, and some of the experiences. Notice that this is within the 200 word limit. And notice that you'd have to do 2 of them within that 200 word limit. We cannot score A because I'm not sure what the need of the project was. Obviously, it must have been light, some sort that they were working on, and if so, then that would probably be okay. B, it says they stated experiences indicate that the teacher is actually able to properly use the requested materials. It's hard to score this one without knowing what the budget is and what the allocated materials are, or what was actually mentioned in the narrative of the materials being used. So it's really hard to score. I'm hoping they have slinkies and prisms, flashlights, maybe some other things that's used for light. And if so, then this looks like it would be something that would be scored on a higher part of the scale. Once you have completed your proposal, you should save all your work and return to the dashboard to complete the budget section. If you completed your entire proposal information icon, it should read 100%. Notice that on here, it does not. That means that I must have not saved and returned and just returned to the dashboard. Uh-oh. Make sure when you're there, you press save several times. If you actually put your narrative in Word first, you wouldn't cry when you got to this point. So make sure that you put your information in Word and you can copy and paste into each of those sections. So if you forget to save, you don't have to rewrite all those sections all over again. I promise you, you're not going to remember everything that you wrote. So constantly go and save. On the left-hand side of your computer, you see the save at the bottom of the page when writing your proposal information. So now I would have to click on the proposal information and go back and refill it out. If it did complete it all and took it and I saved it and returned to the dashboard, this would have read 100%. The next section would be the budget section. I would click the budget section and this would appear. You are to download the expense Excel sheet that's highlighted blue in the middle of the page. I would save it to my desktop and I would rename it. I would probably rename it my last name, and I would probably name it the project of whatever I was doing, the grant title. So when I'm finished completing it, notice this little browse button. You would click that little browse button and find it. You would look for your last name on the desktop to upload it. And again, if you do not click save and return, then you would miss saving it, and you would have to go back and re-upload it again. So when you click on the Excel sheet, you'll see the top of this page. And notice mine is actually filled in. Do note that some reviewers are going to look at this budget page first before reviewing your proposal. The items that you request must be an integral part of your project design and description. You make sure that you justify each of those items in your grant proposal and connect your materials to improve student learning. If it doesn't connect to student learning, then don't put it in. If it doesn't connect to your goal and objective, do not throw it in to your budget. Some people just throw things in because, oh, I don't have $750 and I have some money left. I'm just going to start throwing those in. Don't do that. So once this has been completed, notice that you have your items. And notice I put shipping and handling here at the bottom. Some people forget that. And notice the vendor section. I think last year several people didn't put the vendor that the materials are coming from. So next to this, I would look at my rubric and say, are all budgetary items directly linked to materials included in my description? Is this false kit mentioned in my description? Is the magnetic false kit mentioned in my description? Is it linked to my objectives and goals? Does it support student learning and the need that I described? And then if that's the case, then I would score to the higher part of the scale. Are all budgetary items appropriate for meeting the needs of my students and aligned to the goals and objectives? And if it is, I would go to the higher portion of my scale when scoring. When completed, again, you'd go back and upload it, save, and return to the dashboard. When you return to the dashboard, then you should have 100% underneath the budget icon. The next icon that you will go to is your signature. You click on it, and this is the page that's going to appear. You're going to write your name or type your name. That's going to be your signature. And you're going to put your school and your parish in the board underneath. Again, save and return. And so you'll have your budget 100% and you'd have your application signature 100%. The last section that you have to complete, to me, I think probably has been the most difficult. In order to finalize your submission, you have to have approval from your principal. So if you notice at the upper right-hand corner, you see that little bitty hidden Add Collaborator tab in between Preview Application and Final Review and Submit. You would click that button. There you will see this top picture. Notice the Add Collaborator button on the upper right-hand portion of that page. You will place your principal's information in the Search By section and click Search. If the principal is not in the system, maybe another teacher has already written a grant and has already added your principal. So you will go ahead and you will search, find your principal. If they're not there, you're going to add your principal. So if you look at the bottom, this is what it would look like if you add. You're going to put their first and last name, email address, their organization. And you would put add user, add user. Once your principal has been added as a collaborator, their information will appear on the web page. So every time you click, they would be there. Your principal will receive an email from the admin at communityforce.com inviting them to review your proposal. This is only for them to see your proposal. If it's not completed, they won't be able to see it and to view it. Please notify them, letting them know that they're going to receive that email. So you know they get hundreds of emails a day and it will get lost. Sometimes it may even go to their spam. You may want them to check your spam. Do note that if you didn't receive that email from admin at community support, your principal is not going to receive that email from admin at communityforce.com. You're going to have to get with your IT person to let them know that y'all will be receiving emails from the admin at communityforce.com. Let's see. This email will provide them with the link with their username and password to allow them to actually log on and see the proposal. Once it's completed, once you complete this section, you're going to return to the dashboard by clicking on the upper left-hand corner that's blue highlighted called QSM Guidelines and Applications. Once your principal has reviewed the application, they will need to have a request submitted. Let me go back. See on the bottom, this right-hand icon? At the top, when you add a collaborator, all it does is allow them to view it. You need them to approve it. So in order for them to approve it, after they read it, you need to request it from them. So you're going to click Request. And this is what's going to appear. You're going to type their name in, their email, and this is optional. I did it and didn't put anything in and it worked fine. You don't really need to put anything unless you want to. And you're going to email a request. Now this is for them to approve it. They're going to receive a username and a code for them to go in and sign, just like you did, type in their name for approval on the application. So once you have completed that request, if you go back to this requested button, this is what you see. You sent them an email, a request for an email on 7/28, and then, but you notice here, nothing has been received back from the principal. So once you receive approval back from the principal, the received icon at the bottom would be 100%, and this received section here would give you the date that the principal actually approved your grant application. Take it back. Let me go back. Okay. Once you've finished and all the icons at the bottom have read 100%, including the received back for the request from the principal, notice at the upper right-hand corner there's a preview application and a final review and submit. You can click the preview, reread, print, have somebody review it, look for grammar, double check against the rubric, have somebody read and double check, see if they see or anything that you're missing, and maybe they see that you didn't answer questions. You may think that you've answered all the sections and questions, but when they are looking from a different perspective, they may notice some other things that maybe you have left out. So I would suggest printing this and copying it, and once you actually ready to submit, I would actually print a final copy for you to keep for your records. Things happen all the time. I used to, when I was a teacher, have a folder per grant. I would put my username and password in there. I would put my application, a sample application of what I submitted in there. I would put all the receipts, the packaging slips, everything, the evaluation, the data that I put, everything would be housed in that one place. So if anything was ever needed, all I had to do was go run and pull that folder. Keeps you a little organized. And also on the back side, once everything is 100, I would preview before I actually finally review and submit. Once you know it's good to go, everything's fine, click review and submit. This is just a few things for you to remember. Do not mention information of your school, your name, any teacher's name, school district, etc. Remember that you're not eligible if you only teach special ed, gifted students, or if you're pre-K. Plagiarism. If you plagiarize in any sort, actually, just like Jean said, just a few of the applications look so much like, all they did was change a few words. That is plagiarism. If you do any of these things, your application would be disqualified. And Brenda could tell you, there was lots of them, I think last year that was I don't know if it was last year or year before, that was disqualified for plagiarism and some of those other start early. Once completed, review your grant to ensure that you followed all the directions. Reviewers are concerned with when proposals have lots of errors, grammatical errors. You could probably catch a bunch of them if you actually do it in Word and copy and paste. Have somebody, even an English teacher, read over it and double check your work. And have someone review your proposal up against the rubric. Again, sorry. It clicked out at the end. So that is the end of the session, and hopefully y'all have some questions that you can put in the question board, and Nathan would be able, or Jean would be able to answer some of those questions that you still have or maybe need to ask of me. And if I missed anything in here, or that Nathan, Jean, or Brenda would love to add on to what I said, please do so.
Brenda, are you on the line? We have a question about using sales tax in the budget. Could you reply to that?
Yes. Your school should have no sales tax. And if it requires going with your school, under your school name, then I'm sure that your principal would be amenable to that, because you should not have to pay any taxes at all.
Thank you. I appreciate that response.
And I just want to say kudos to everyone on this webinar, because you're starting early. Don't procrastinate. We find that most everyone comes in September, and it's just a race to the finish, and they don't do as good of a job. So start early, get a few, of those questions done at a time, and you can always just save and go back as many times as you would like.
Nathan, are they still typing in questions?
Yes, I'm trying to respond to one as you speak, but if you pull up the questions, I don't know if you can see it. I don't think you can because you're...
No.
So, yeah, there's just one last question, and I think most of our questions have either been responded to privately or shared with the whole group for everyone to see the response. So
then this concludes the Learning to Write a QSM Grant webinar, and I appreciate everybody putting up with them. This is the first time I conducted a webinar. I'm so used to being in front of an audience and being able to get feedback and actually see the eyes if they're concerned or have any questions. So I appreciate y'all being on here and appreciate y'all taking your time out of your busy schedules to attend. It really shows a lot about each and every one of you attending. And I would love to thank Brenda and Nathan. They spent over an hour yesterday helping me make sure that the day ran very smoothly. And Brenda, I'm sorry you weren't able to come on. I know you had your own battles to fight at home. But I appreciate you all getting on and helping and taking out your time. Thanks.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks.